Hi gang, Rob here. It is the evening of 6 November 2017, coming to you this evening with a review of a Great Eastern cutlery knife. Boy, it seems like those have been few and far between this year, but it's time to do one. And the knife that we're looking at tonight is in Tittyute trim, as you can see. Handcrafted Tittyute cutlery, classic pocket knives, hammer tested, frozen, forged, 1095 carbon steel. And the knife in question this evening is the number 351217 Churchill in Gabon ebony. Anybody who watches this channel very much knows that Gabon ebony and Tittyute trim is my absolute favorite combination for a user knife from GEC, and that's exactly what we have here. So for those of you who don't know, the number 35 pattern from GEC is brand new for 2017, and really 3 knives have been made from it already. It is what I would call a small to medium sized cigar pattern, and although it is 3 3/4 inches closed, that would be a small to medium sized cigar. So most of the cigar patterns, at least in GEC's lineup, are the 53 and 54s, which are well over 4 inches long. A much more usable size is this one. For those of you who don't know, the first 35 was this one. The 8th harness jack, a special factory order by Charlie Campagna, with a spear main. 10 years of harness jacks. And a punch secondary, okay? And it's an opposite end, equal end, cigar-shaped jackknife. Both implements running on one big fat back spring, okay? I like this knife a lot. Not because I'm particularly a spear point fan, not because I particularly need this punch, although it is a very interesting and sharply pointed punch. I like the knife in hand. I love the frame. I bought this because it was Charlie's SFO. It's not a knife that I'm going to use a bunch, but it's going to, be in my collection till I die because it's Charlie's SFO. Okay. So, they also released a farm and field tool, and frankly, I can't remember the name of it, but some people don't like it, Derek Bone, because it's maybe trying to be too many things to too many people. But you know the farm and field line with the sort of rough riveted pivot and bolsterless construction. And if I think of the name, I'll maybe put a note up here in the upper left, but I'll probably look it up before I publish the video. I didn't buy one of those knives. I might. But when I saw this one, the Churchill, I just had to have one. As I said, 3 3/4 inch closed length, which is going to make it very similar in size to a number 77. Okay, 3 11/16 to 3 3/4. So it's a 1/16 longer in frame length than a 77. It feels exactly the same size in hand. But here's kind of an interesting thing. The advantage of that equal end, opposite end construction. Notice how the blades pass each other with no center liner, and they both run on one spring. This knife, 480 thousandths thick with 2 implements, and really robust stock thickness. Look how thick that is at the tang. That must be doggone near 5/32 thick. A 77 Yankee Barlow, 425 thousandths thick, so the thickness difference less than a 1/16 of an inch. This single-bladed knife with thinner stock, okay? So very, very thickness efficient is that opposite end single spring construction. And, it makes for some interesting complication. Look what these blades have to do. Look at the way the grind is offset on that main blade, and it's actually ground at an angle. so it passes the secondary. And then if we back up over here and look at the secondary blade, its grind is way offset and it's ground dead straight against that liner. Now, as with most knives of this construction, you're just going to get some rub. And I think if we look closely, here is the main blade, and this is the side of the main blade that has to pass that secondary. I thought I saw some evidence earlier. Maybe it's not shown on this blade, but I think it does on the secondary. Let's see. Yeah. Right through this area of the blade you can see some very faint rubbing, and I think out here at the tip, right behind the swedge, there's a little bit of rubbing from the liner. Not a big deal, guys. This is a dedicated user knife, and frankly, most of that rub probably happened during assembly and hafting, before the blades were kinked. I don't think they're actually touching each other as they sit now. Now, I will say this. This is not the best fit and finish of any GEC Titty knife I've had in recent years. Our transitions to bolsters are okay. You can barely catch a finger on a couple of these, probably 2 out of the 8 corners. The hafting is beautiful. The blade grinds are, I'm going to say less than perfect, okay? Notice, I don't know if you can, but back here near the base of the main blade, the grind gets just a little wonky. Notice the satin finish on the swedge is a little ragged. Just remember though, guys, actually, the wonky grind was on the base of the secondary blade. And I think you can kind of see right above the sharpening choil, which is barely adequate. You get a little, I'm not sure what happened back there. See that shiny spot? Not sure. But, you know, not the perfection we're used to seeing from GEC. There's that blade rub right there. Now, do I care about that on a Titty Ute that was $93? No, I don't. I haven't had a Northfield in hand. And while we're talking about that, let me see if I can think of all the configurations. In Titty Ute trim, we have the Gabon Ebony, we have the Cougar Clawed Bone, the Maroon Linen Micarta, and the Hummingbird Acrylic. And then in Northfield, I know that there was a Sandbar Stag. And let's see what else we got here. Let me look it up real quick. No, I'm sorry. The Hummingbird was a Northfield cover, and the Sandbar Stag is Northfield. Then the other 3, the Gabon Ebony, Cougar Clawed Bone, and Maroon Linen are the Titty Utes. And by the way, since I'm looking at the website, the Farm and Field tool in this pattern is the calf pen. Okay, the calf pen. Okay. So I haven't had one of the Northfields in hand. I actually reserved a Stag on the early reserve and then missed it because I'm not sure that system was working right on Mike Latham's website, to tell you the truth. I got my notification that the knives were in the queue, and then we were supposed to get a second email telling us, okay, now you can go in and look and choose the one that you want. I never got that notification, and then by the time I checked back, the early reserve was gone. So I don't know what happened there. So why do I like this knife so much? And I do like it. You know, it's not the best fit and finish of any GEC I've ever had, to be sure. The pulls are a little wonky. It's a 5 at best on the main blade. Cam tangs, no half stops. I mean, you might even call it a 4.5. The secondary actually feels more like a 5. That shorter lever makes it a harder pull, and it's got a little bit better snap. Here's why I like it. A super well executed clip point blade. Okay. And extremely good in hand. If we place the index finger all the way up in the self guard on the tang or the ricasso, it lets me get my index finger and my middle finger on the handle without being encroached upon by that secondary blade. That's one of the great things about an equal and opposite end jack, is you don't have a second blade tang sticking up here to mess up your grip and create a hot spot. So that secondary blade, although it is not a coping blade, it is a larger sheep's foot blade. It does not get in the way of your grip whatsoever. I mean, you can really bear down in a saber grip on that knife. It works great in the overhand pinch grip and in the draw cut grip, as you might expect. Plenty of room for your thumb in that draw cut grip. Just a great user pattern. Very size efficient from a thickness standpoint. Super good in hand. 2 very usable blades. Because that main is a clip, even though my middle finger is over that sloping clip point, I don't even feel it, because it's close enough to the handle that doesn't bother my grip. So I can get a really powerful cutting grip in that blade too. Just a neat pattern. Whoa, Butterfingers. You know, maybe I'll go back in and buy one of those Stag knives. I don't know. The first quality run of the Stag is sold out on collector knives. Haven't been over to Knife Ship Free to look. But Mike has one of his nitpicky cull lots of Stag knives for $110, and I think they were about $125 when they came out first quality. So that might be a pretty good deal. There's one of those that looks pretty good to me, actually. My phone is vibrating my whole table. Sorry about that. So the Gabon Ebony Titiout, I think, was $93. 93, 95, something like that. The whole spectrum of the Churchill runs between 91 and 125. From base maroon linen Titiout to Stag Northfield. So a really nice value, and a knife that is, I think, a classic. You know, it's sort of one of those things that's an instant classic. I wish the main blade had just a little more spring tension, but I'm not gonna kill it for that. You know, if I want a main blade with a killer spring, that's what 78 American Jacks are for, isn't it? This is more of a, I don't know, light duty EDC task knife for me. And a pretty nice one, I think. Goes well in the spectrum of Great Eastern cutlery, I think. And they're still available. How many times do we get to do a GEC video where the knife on the review table is actually still available as you know, new at a retailer? It's pretty interesting. So, you know, they're not flying off the shelves. They're not selling out like Tom's Choice Barlow's do. But if you're a guy who wants a pocket knife to cut stuff, the 35 Churchill is a really good option. Thought you'd like to see it. That's all for this one, my friends. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the word is sharp.